I just received some interesting email from the social media network Gab. I have a Gab account, but I found that nothing I posted there ever generated even a ripple of response, so I quit posting. I get a lot of emails from Gab, but I typically pass right over them. I decided to read this one. It's about Biden and Thomas Matthew Crooks, the shooter of Trump, and the three others attending Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. Today, we will read it together and parse its implications. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With cold, blunt analysis cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's time for the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
So let's read this. Today, Gab learned that Thomas Crooks, the deranged Joe Biden supporter who attempted to assassinate President Donald Trump, may have had an account on our platform. Notice they come out and label him a deranged Joe Biden supporter. That's what they're getting to here. We are unable to confirm that the account in question actually belonged to him, but have reason to believe it does after receiving an emergency disclosure request from a law enforcement agency, and that would probably be the FBI. We know that the FBI has already cracked Crooks' social media accounts. Evidently, they found that he had been posting on Gab, and then alerted Gab about this so that Gab could preserve the information. We move on. The account was last active on the site in 2021. As far as we are aware, the account did not use the site to send any direct messages. He posted on the site 9 times total. While the account made very few posts on the site, the majority of them were in support of President Biden. A number of posts in particular expressed support for President Biden's COVID lockdowns, border policies, and executive orders. We have saved the account data pending receipt of a search warrant. I'm going to go ahead and just leave these up. You can read them on your own. We are disclosing this information at significant personal and business risk. If the past is any guide, defying the DC consensus by publishing the first definitive evidence that the shooter was a Biden supporter, something Democrats and their media allies have tried to cover up and deny at every turn, has a high probability of resulting in significant political and media backlash. I think this is being a little bit melodramatic. In the past, we have been the target of politically motivated inquiries from both the House Oversight Committee and the Joint Committee on the January 6th attacks, both of which sought to interfere with our mission of protecting free speech online. The enemies of freedom have the ability to impose significant present and future legal costs, and any donations we receive will help defray those costs. And so they're asking for donations here. So from where did the Crooks was a Republican idea emanate? Well, Time magazine sums it up. Registered Republican, donor to progressives. State public voting records show that Crooks was a registered Republican, while Federal Election Commission documents show that a donor with the same name and address, probably him, gave $15 to Act Blue, the Democratic fundraising apparatus, on January 20th, 2021, the date of President Joe Biden's inauguration. The donation was earmarked for the Progressive Turnout Project. A spokesperson for the Progressive Turnout Project told CNN that the email address associated with the contribution only made one contribution and was unsubscribed from our list 2 years ago. They added, "We unequivocally condemn political violence." Yeah. Naturally, the question arises, if Crooks was really a progressive, why would he register as a Republican? I can think of 2 reasons. Number 1, he registered to vote in Republican primaries to upset the apple cart for the opposing party. This is a common practice across the nation. You fear Joe Blow will win if nominated, so you register for Joe's primary and vote for his challenger. Number 2, he painted a false flag about himself in anticipation of what he was about to do so that his political opponents would soak up the blame for his act. Now, I don't know when he registered for Republican, so that's kind of important. But if he registered relatively recently, then number 2 here becomes far more plausible. I think this is far more common than people think. It only makes sense. If I'm a fierce gun rights activist, I am, and I have plans to do terrible things to gun control activists, I'm not, I know that my fellow gun rights activists will be blamed for creating a culture of violence that compelled me to do those terrible things. I don't want that. So I'll go online and post some gun control articles and such. Again, I think this is happening a lot more than people realize. I just remembered another one. Some of his past friends, eager to paint Crooks in a manner that suited their own political strategies, fabricated stories about his political allegiances. There is one such story in particular posted in the Daily Beast that comes off as total hooey. I will cover this in a separate video. In case you want to read it now, I will post a link to it in the description below. So is Crooks a Republican? Crooks' post on Gab is dated 2021, which is probably well before he had any inclinations towards shooting Trump. As such, it is highly unlikely that he posted this message in anticipation of using it to paint a false flag narrative about himself. Of course, his political leanings could have changed in the past 3 years. But how likely is that? You have someone arguing pro-Biden sentiment, and 3 years later, he becomes a Republican? Of course, none of this means that Crooks shot Trump out of any political concerns. In fact, there is no evidence that Crooks had any deep political leanings. If his online presence is any indication, Crooks was hardly the firebrand political extremist. We may never know why he shot Trump, but it doesn't seem to be an act of terrorism. If he shot Trump to help further a political agenda, then I think there would be evidence of radical political leanings in his past. I will also say this. For the most part, the right-wing response to Trump's shooting was not centered on the political motivations of the shooter. It was primarily aimed at ridiculing the U.S. Secret Service, its unwillingness to protect Trump out of its own political concerns, the violent rhetoric that helped label Trump Hitler, and the manner in which DEI helped propel an unqualified woman to head the agency. Now, you may disagree with those statements, but that is what was being bandied around post-shooting. I don't recall too many Trump supporters claiming that Trump was shot by Antifa or BLM or anyone like that. Exceptions? Yeah, sure. There will always be exceptions. Before I forget, if you like this kind of content, be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel.